Tonight, in our coverage, Toronto proposes a contentious bylaw that could significantly limit pro-Palestinian demonstrations on city streets. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Aisha Ashraf. Canada has strongly condemned China for executing 4 Canadian citizens earlier this year. Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly calls the move a callous disregard for human life and rights. She says Canada had intervened, but China refused to show leniency. Global Affairs Canada has reaffirmed its opposition to the death penalty. It is providing support to the victims' families, but has not disclosed their identities. China's embassy in Ottawa defends the executions, saying its laws must be respected. It insists that the cases were handled fairly and that the evidence was solid. Canadian Michael Kovrig, who was detained in China previously, has dismissed China's justification as propaganda. Kovrig is urging the government to push for clemency and use trade as leverage to demand human rights reforms. The move comes amid rising economic tensions. China is imposing tariffs on Canadian goods, retaliating against Canada's trade restrictions on Chinese products. Conservative MP Michael Chong condemns the executions, calling them politically motivated. Experts say executing foreigners is rare in China and signals worsening ties with Canada. Canada continues to press for clemency for other Canadians in Chinese prisons. Canada's conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, is distancing himself from U.S. President Donald Trump after Trump's latest controversial remarks. In a recent Fox News interview, Trump said he'd rather negotiate with a liberal than a conservative leader in Canada, and again hinted at annexing Canadian territory. Poilievre swiftly responded, framing Trump's comments as support for Canada's new Liberal Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Poilievre says he is a strong leader committed to putting Canada first. These developments come amid slipping poll numbers for the Conservative Party since the start of the year. Analysts say Trump's provocative threats, coupled with Justin Trudeau's recent resignation as Liberal leader, have given the Liberals a notable boost. A new Angus Reid poll reveals 55% of Canadians see Carney as better equipped than Poilievre to handle potential trade conflict with the U.S. Only 30% back Poilievre on this issue. Internal documents revealed that the Ontario government's plan to remove bike lanes raises concerns about increased collisions and a lack of alternative routes for cyclists. The report is compiled by engineering firm CIMA Plus for the Ministry of Transportation Ontario and assesses safety risks for all road users, including pedestrians. It suggests the removal in Toronto might not ease congestion, but could make roads more dangerous, potentially increasing collisions by 54%. Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Transportation Minister Pravmeet Sarkaria argue that removing bike lanes on key Toronto roads will reduce traffic. They promised to relocate bike lanes to secondary streets, but the report reveals doubts about the feasibility of this plan. Experts say cyclists prefer direct routes and alternatives might not exist due to natural barriers like ravines and bridges. The bike lane removals, part of Bill 212, face a legal challenge from the charity Cycle Toronto. A court hearing in April will decide on the matter. Researchers have uncovered possible connections between Ontario's provincial police and an Israeli spyware company called Paragon Solutions. Paragon sells spyware called graphite to governments for surveillance purposes. The discovery raises concerns about how Canadian police are using advanced cyber tools. The findings, published by Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto, highlight possible ties between Paragon Solutions and Ontario-based groups, including one associated with the Ontario Provincial Police. Citizen Lab found evidence showing that spyware usage among Ontario police agencies is increasing. Records show the police used spyware tools as early as 2019. Recent court documents also reveal Toronto and York Regional Police considered using spyware known as on-device investigative tools for surveillance in criminal cases. The Ontario Provincial Police has not denied using spyware, but says any interception of private communications follows strict Canadian laws and court approval. However, it has refused to provide details, claiming that doing so could risk ongoing investigations and officer safety. Citizen Labs research follows earlier controversies about Canadian police using spyware to hack mobile phones. In 2022, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police admitted using spyware, but only in serious cases with judicial permission. Paragon, now owned by a U.S. company, has not directly commented on the report. Paragon software has previously been misused against journalists and activists in Italy, prompting the company to suspend its services in the region. At least 71 Palestinians, including many women and children, have been killed today in Israeli airstrikes targeting homes across northern and southern Gaza. More than 183 children have been killed since Israel shattered the ceasefire. Eyewitness report 12 houses have been destroyed, leaving numerous victims trapped beneath the rubble. Rescue teams are overwhelmed as they attempt to save survivors. United Nations Agency Chief Philippe Lazzarini has confirmed 5 United Nations relief workers, including teachers and medical professionals, were killed in recent attacks. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned of escalating operations, including the potential for increased military activity in the occupied West Bank. Hamas says it is engaged in negotiations mediated by third parties, aiming to halt Israeli attacks and restore the ceasefire. Israel's blockade restricting aid into Gaza has entered its 19th day. Essential goods such as flour, cooking oil, and sugar have become prohibitively expensive, reaching 5 times their usual prices. Palestinian authorities now report a total death toll exceeding 61,700, including thousands presumed dead beneath rubble. More than 111,700 have been wounded since the onset of war. More than 450 Canadian civil society and faith-based organizations are urgently calling on Prime Minister Mark Carney to take decisive action following the recent escalation of Israeli attacks in Gaza. The initiative is being led by the National Council of Canadian Muslims. In an open letter, the coalition condemns the Israeli government for ending the ceasefire and carrying out strikes that have killed over 450 Palestinians, including more than 80 children, within a single 24-hour period. The letter says Netanyahu's government is committing mass atrocities by deliberately targeting civilians, engaging in plausibly genocidal actions. It also strongly criticizes the international community's muted response, especially Canada's inaction. The coalition demands the opposition of Magnitsky sanctions against Netanyahu and key members of his government. It calls for establishing a comprehensive two-way arms embargo and immediate recognition of Palestine as a sovereign state. Thousands of protesters are demanding Palestinian right to self-determination and end of genocide. A huge crowd marched along Toronto's Yonge Street yesterday, demanding an immediate halt to Israel's bombardment of Gaza. Waving Palestinian flags and chanting slogans for justice, demonstrators urged the international community to intervene. They called the ongoing violence as a massacre of innocent civilians. Organizers highlighted the urgent need for humanitarian aid and an urgent ceasefire. The demonstration is part of a broader wave of global protests, condemning the escalating violence and expressing solidarity with Palestinians. Although local Zionist groups attempted to counter the demonstration, the protests have continued to gain momentum. Demonstrators pledged to continue their efforts. In related news, Toronto police have defended Muslim protesters who gathered for mass prayers on Yonge Street during a pro-Palestinian demonstration. Police say peaceful assembly and prayer are protected under Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, even when such events block busy roads. The demonstration closed down a significant section of Yonge Street, prompting debate over public safety and street accessibility. A local resident confronted the demonstrators, describing the street closure as totally unacceptable, as it could cause disruptions to emergency services and transit. While police acknowledge these concerns, they emphasize their duty to balance protest rights with public safety. Toronto faces a challenging question of whether a busy street is an appropriate venue for mass prayer during demonstrations. For now, police urge patience and understanding, maintaining there is limited action they can take. Toronto residents are being urged to weigh in on a controversial proposed bylaw that could impose new restrictions on protests in the city. The City of Toronto is holding public consultations on whether demonstrations should be limited near vulnerable institutions, such as places of worship and faith-based schools. The proposed measure follows recent large-scale protests against Israel's actions in Gaza and has sparked intense debate. Critics, including journalist Samira Muhyiddin, question the timing and intent of the consultations. They say the bylaw could unfairly target pro-Palestinian demonstrations and potentially infringe upon fundamental freedoms. Concerns escalated after a last-year protest in Vaughan, where demonstrators opposed an event promoting Israeli settlement properties. Pro-Zionist groups labeled the protest anti-Semitic, while organizers defended it as legitimate political expression. The city has opened an online survey for public input until May 1st, with discussions planned throughout April. Activists are encouraging wide participation, warning that the bylaw may set a precedent for broader limitations on protest rights. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News Canada. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV.